Game begin.
Let me tell you about Cataclysm. I was watching Mike Harris in the finals. His opponent resolved Cataclysm. Left him only 2 permanents. Unfortunately, those permanents were Hermit, Druid, and the Land. He didn't survive the next turn.
You should play Obliterate.
Okay, hello and welcome to a very late post-tournament episode of the Spy Colony podcast. This is episode 15, if I'm keeping track.
Are we going to talk about your PSS win?
We'll run up the order, but first, I am here with the lead punter of the Premodern Illuminati,
Man, you are cruel.
Michael J. Flores.
Cruel master.
Your co-host is the backup punter for our team, Lanny Huang. We have special guest Cam Fulton. Cam, say hi.
Hello.
Cam finished top 4 in the Sacred Torch Showdown, 1.5K. We had a turnout of 37 people. I finished in the top 8. Mike punted his winning in. We'll cover that in hopefully not too much time. And we're also at Landy Ho's house. Land's in the kitchen. He'll say hi at some point. Cam is going to share 10 minutes on Enchantress. Cam, 10 minutes of Enchantress content. Go.
Oh boy, I haven't prepared at all. 10 minutes is a stand-up set. All right. So I've been playing Enchantress. I guess I played it in Legacy a million years ago, and now I'm playing it in Pre-Modern. It's not that different, funnily enough, in Pre-Modern compared to when I was playing it in Legacy, which I think maybe helps a little bit.
You played it like the last 5 meetups or something.
I've played it the last...
I played you every single time.
Yeah, like 3, 4 at least, I think. Yeah, I think the deck is good. I think it has a lot of room for iterating on still. I don't think it's like a solved list, and I think there are a million lists that you could build.
All right, tell us the cool things you did, what worked and what didn't.
So describe the Enchantress deck. The thing that people complain about constantly is we just talk about decks, and I told you this at the beginning.
Sorry.
People don't know what's in these decks that we're talking about.
Sure, I can talk
You
about
think
what...
everyone is super enfranchised.
So the core, the classic core, is green-white. You run, 8 Enchantress effects, which are cast an enchantment, draw a card. Although you usually have more than one in play, so it's really like cast an enchantment, draw 3 to 5 cards, which is pretty good. And then you run various ways to make sure that you don't, deck yourself or just lose. The deck focuses more on not losing than it focuses on winning. It's just sort of like an inevitability engine. It's not super fast. It's not super good at...
But it's very good at slowing opponent offense down. So.
Yeah, exactly. You basically what you want to do is live till turn 4 or 5, and if you do that, you kind of have the kind of classic moment where you go from I'm playing a regular deck to my library is my hand, and it happens pretty suddenly. You'll go from I have 5 or 6 mana and 4 cards in hand to I have 38 mana and half my deck in my hand, and the other half's in play.
How do you actually win when you're in this position?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different ways you can do it. The way that I've been doing it most recently, so this tournament, the last meetup, and maybe one meetup before that, I've been on Words of Wind, which is a blue enchantment for 2 and a blue. And it has a replacement effect you can pay 1 to get a replacement effect. So the next time you would draw a card, each player returns a card in play to their hand. So once you've established total mana dominance, you can just kind of you bounce essentially nothing because you can just keep replaying all your stuff, and then your opponent has literally nothing in play. And from there, it's just kind of choose your own adventure. You can make a bunch of 1/1s and attack with them. You can just wait until your opponent draws their deck, and you win. I don't recommend it. It takes too long. Opalescence works. Turns all of your enchantments.
So pause for a sec.
Yep.
When we played, and you conceded to me because I could create a loop where I would deal 1 point of damage to you every 3 turns or something.
Yeah.
But I had Gaia's Blessing to stay alive. If you had Words of Wind instead of Words of War,
Yeah.
you would have just actually decked me, even though I had Gaia's Blessing and you didn't.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's very interesting. So you could beat someone who's gained 20 million life or something.
Yeah. You don't really have to do anything. It kind of like beats just about everything. I actually don't know.
You can beat people
What-
of infinite life.
Pernicious Steed.
Yeah, it does not beat Pernicious Steed. Although, if you've gotten them to the point where they have nothing in play,
No, you can
unless
replenish through them,
they
right?
diamond, you can replenish through Deed.
What
yeah.
kind of opponent has diamond in their deep deck?
Hey, you never know. I've got diamonds in my Enchantress deck.
Man, Lanny loves diamonds so much. He's like, guys,
Yeah.
you're never gonna believe it. Diamond rock.
Hey,
Let's go.
you know what?
First turn wall of
It gets you there if you get words of winded out. You know.
I cut the Birds of Paradise from the deck. You don't think? Okay.
There's even better than Birds of
So
Paradise.
Cam, how much have you?
Mox
How long have
Diamond.
you been playing pre-modern, and why are you playing pre-modern?
I have been playing Premodern since, I guess, during pandemic. I actually don't know what year.
2021.
Yeah, 2021.
Is it
maybe.
all New York City meetups, or did you do any online play?
I did like some webcam stuff before the meetups kind of restarted, and then the meetups restarted. There was like one in Queens when everyone was still
Okay.
like masking and
So for background, New York City meetups used to just be like
in people's
very
offices.
chill, very like just bring your brew,
Yeah.
like not really cutthroat.
Well, then what happened?
Yeah, not cutthroat at all.
And then it just evolved into trying to kill each other every month.
Yeah. I mean, when I remember when I started, I don't know his name, but there was a guy who would just show up with like a box of proxies, like just like printed out pieces of paper, and he would just like put them naked in sleeves, like not even like a card behind them, you know. And so it was so cool. I was like, this rules. This is like a very good vibe, you know. Like I have no clue what this dude is playing.
My first meetup, I was 3-0. I thought I was gonna win. Then I was defeated at the 3-0 table by Cam playing elves.
Sorry.
Oh, nice. Okay.
He ruined my day.
So how'd your tournament go? Good matchups, bad matchups, fine matchups. Are you happy? How does it feel to top 4? I mean, did you feel like the tournament was super hard? Did you feel like you were prepared and like, you know, you just found the right matchups? Like, you know, talk us through like how, like, day's clearly a success, but like, is it just how we drew it up? Bunch of lucky breaks. What's the plot? What's the story, man?
Yeah, it's a mix. It always is. So I've been messing around with the deck at meetups to try to figure out how I want to play it, right? Like what are the weaknesses and how can you kind of shore them up? Because like in an inevitability deck like this, that's kind of what I think you want to do. You don't need you know, like a very clear path. You just need a bunch of different winding paths that you can take depending on where you're at. I think for today, I ran pretty good on matchups up until the quarters. I did not know how to play against Fulton Breakfast. I still don't know if I can actually beat it.
That's the semis.
Yeah, sorry, the semis. My bad. Yeah.
Did you play against elves in the
I played against elves in the quarters. I actually hadn't played against elves with the deck because I think I'm the only person who like actually plays elves at the meetups regularly.
Yeah, there's a few.
Oh yes, yeah. Spencer plays, but he hasn't been there.
Well, that's so. It seems like elves would be a bad matchup because they can just kill you on turn 3. You don't interact that much.
It's actually not that easy for them to kill me on turn 3
Okay.
because of the elephant grass, right?
because of Elephant Grass. Yeah,
Okay.
They need 2 mana.
I can also kill survival technically.
Okay.
So it's like I'm not totally dead. It's not very good.
Yeah, elves is very soft to opalescence parallax wave, but
Yeah.
you're not a replenished. Like you're not a turbo.
No, I've one
You have to
opalescence
cast-
with
yeah,
one
exactly.
parallax wave. Yeah.
Okay. Well, but you defined. Did you just like win 2-0 or like? What
No,
there?
it's 2-1. It was
Okay,
2-1.
cool.
Yeah, so the first game I took pretty easily. The second game he had like a really fast start. Or maybe I have these in the reverse, doesn't matter. And then the final game was like he had a mulligan to 5, and then he played a naked survival on turn 2 on the play. And I had seal in my hand, and that kind of like that clinched it.
Yeah,
that bought me enough
stops
time.
survival.
But it's like he had nothing. He had nowhere to follow up. So.
And then Hermit FEB was just kind of bad. Didn't understand the deck, and then also combo decks are generally good against Enchantress.
Yeah.
You're saying you're scared of Fluctuator too. It's just like
Yeah, Fluctuator's rough. So I beat Fluctuator once, like a literal one game, in the 2 times I've played against it with the deck.
Did you play against Osip?
Yeah, I think I was the only person who'd taken a game against him. So I'm proud of that, I guess. But I didn't take the match, so it doesn't really mean much, you know.
He won 2 meetups in a row, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
What a jerk.
I know, unbelievable. I wonder who gave him that deck. So yeah, I played I think a turn 2 Aura of Silence against him on
Yeah,
the play or something, and he was just like, well, okay. You know?
I'll see you in a few turns.
Yeah, exactly. And that was just like enough time to establish, kind of the
and then
block.
the Swiss, was it like,
I played against,
what's your record in the Swiss? X1, 4-1-1?
4-1-1, yeah. So I drew round 1 against Blue-White, and then I lost round 2. I actually don't remember what I played against, but I did not win. And then I won from there.
Right, you drew against Landstill.
I drew against Landstill, yeah.
And then you just won
I played
out.
against
I don't
her.
understand.
What'd you lose to?
And on Thursday, I lost to Cam.
What did
I
you
went
lose?
3-1.
No, Cam, what was your loss? Sorry, I missed it.
I don't. Oh no, I do remember. I lost to like Growatog, like a weird list that I wasn't.
Oh, you lost to
sure of.
Queer and Dryad Band Threshold.
Yeah,
Ari.
whatever. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
What?
I played against Ari. He was playing Band Threshold with Korean Dryad.
Sounds like
and
your
Mental Note.
dream.
Yeah. It was a weird.
I beat him with Exalted Angels, but
I think
his
that's
deck was super cool.
It was really cool. I think it's probably like a pretty good matchup for Enchantress. I just had kind of like clunky draws,
Yeah, it should be a good matchup. Although when I play Grotog versus Enchantress, I can normally win any time that I can disrupt the engine.
Yeah.
And so Meddling Mage on Enchantresses or removal spells, and then some mix of Engineered Plague and counter spells and disenchants can handle the engine.
Yeah, for sure.
So I've played it a few times. I've generally lose 1-2 to Enchantress on Grotog.
Yeah.
But I put up a good fight, and I have sometimes 1-2-1.
Sure. Okay. So maybe it's not as clear cut as my brain thinks it is.
I think it's
Where did Lane
like
go?
weird. We're in his house and he's just gone.
Nope.
Maybe he's playing Baldur's Gate in somebody else's apartment.
Yeah, he just like goes upstairs. Okay, well, sweet, good tournament. Enchantress sounds like a good deck. What so let's talk about tech. You had Dueling Grounds.
Is that
Not good.
I think it's fine. So the reason I'm playing it is because Elephant Grass eventually dies.
But Dueling Grounds.
Dueling Grounds
is
does
forever.
not die. Yeah. So it buys you like a lot of time. This deck, I've goldfished with it a lot. If you're like totally uninterrupted, you can establish like a comfortable position of like 2 Enchantress effects and a Solitary Confinement on turn like 4.5 pretty regularly. And so the trick is just like getting to that point. And the real problem is, of course, you are being disrupted. So like the timeline is actually a little bit longer. Usually, so you need to.
But it's just one of.
But I have 4 Elephant Grass too.
Oh,
so-
Elephant Grounds turning around.
Yeah, I'm not
it's just a little bit of density of interaction to attacks, and then obviously
exactly.
it's an enchantment, so you still draw.
You draw cards, yeah. But the real tech is I brought in 3 Mox Diamonds last night.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I'm
just
pretty
like
sure
that
these are
last
good.
night.
I think at like 2:30 in the morning. Yeah, I was like, I'm doing 3
That's
Mox
actually
Diamonds.
super awesome because you
Listeners at
don't
home,
see.
You did not see Lanny like light up like a Christmas tree when he heard that Cam had added Mox. Oh, Mox Simon did another deck?
I think they're
Tell
good.
me more.
They're super good because the deck draws a lot of cards.
Yeah.
And, what matters more. I mean, the deck profitably plays both Exploration and Wild Growth.
Yep.
Exploration has effectively the same text as Mox Diamond and draws you a card.
It's actually pretty different. No, so this is the thing is, I think my intuition was, well, why don't I just play more Explorations, right?
Yeah.
But
you played 3 Exploration, 3 Mox, 2 Exploration.
3 Mox, 2 Exploration,
Yeah.
right? So I guess like
You can find the list on TC Decks.
Yeah.
Eventually.
The situation you get into, right, is like, these are the considerations, right? So getting on board early really matters. So if you can play a turn 1 Argothian Enchantress, that's great. If you can play a turn 2 Enchantress's Presence, that's great. You can do those things more easily with Mox Diamond. So you can't do the first one with an Exploration. You can do the second one with either an Exploration or
I mean, you don't
Wild
have
Growth,
to work too hard to convince me on that.
Yeah.
And I think it was a really interesting angle that you took. And notably, Sam Black was like, well, you should probably just play Mox Diamond. He probably plays 4 Mox Diamonds, 4 Exploration.
I think he
in the
said you
list he drew
should
up.
not play Mox Diamond in Enchantress because
Okay.
you want to draw cards. But that is true. But I did a lot.
At some point, it just doesn't matter.
That's the thing.
So, yeah.
Well, it doesn't matter, and also the thing that actually ends up happening in the turns where you're like beginning to establish the I have 50 mana thing. Let's say you have like 2 Enchantress effects in play, or even 1, and you're just kind of like playing out cards to try to draw more. You're in a position where you have maybe like 4 or 5 mana. if you draw 2 cards and one of them is a Mox Diamond, and now, that was like your last point of mana, now you can play the diamond and play like another thing and
Yeah, just
2
keep
more
going.
cards.
Yeah, it helps you keep going,
right.
for sure.
Its exploration doesn't let you do that. Because like you do run out of mana.
Right,
You don't actually have
You run out of
infinite.
your land drops.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, they work well in conjunction because they just give you something to do with your lands
Yeah.
when you draw extras.
Yep.
Personally, I was very depressed about the Mox Diamonds. So Cam says to me, "Oh, did you see that I added Mox Diamond in my deck?" And I mean, I of course had noticed because I was watching him play earlier, but I had added Cataclysm to the sideboard of our deck that Lan D made, specifically to try to beat Cam because the dude always has 2 Sterling Groves into play. So I'm like, I need some way to break through this. And now that he is an artifact, so he could literally have like a Serra Sanctum
With a wild growth on it.
Again, Argothian Enchantress
And a Mox.
and a Mox Diamond. I'm like, come on, man. This is some savage BS over here.
Yeah. So I played against Cataclysm poorly on
it was
camera.
LOL,
But
right.
it was very funny, yeah, because it's just like, okay. It's like,
I almost feel bad saying this, but did I tip you off when Matt cast Cataclysm against you?
no,
And
I figured that out, the Up-Lessons thing. That like I could save a
that
creature.
you could save it. Yeah, but
Yeah,
you
yeah.
took a while
Yeah.
to figure that out because you were like picking up your
I'm pretty
permanents.
sleepy.
And then I was like, I looked at the judge, and then
Yeah.
I was like,
No, I mean I know because it's the same effect as resolving like any other thing that's like like a
for the
Trax or
listeners,
whatever that card is.
for
It's
the
like,
listener background, Cam has Opalescence and Parallax Wave in play, and his opponent Matt Perlman, friend of the podcast and local hero, who sadly lost his win in.
Well, he lost his winning into Cam.
To Cam.
yeah, he's also my friend, so,
So
I mean,
it's
it
like
is sad.
not
but-
really that sad.
Good point. He casts Cataclysm, and due to the way that Cataclysm works, is that you can choose Parallax Wave as your creature and Opalescence as your enchantment.
Yeah, it's
and
pretty
I was
good.
just worried that I was watching the match, and I was worried that I tipped Cam off to that
No,
by
I can't
like,
make that one, man.
by like making faces or being a weirdo
I wasn't
at the
paying
end of the
attention.
table. Okay, cool.
You did point out that Wild Growth is an enchantment, which was
Yeah,
good,
but that was like
because I just like missed it.
That was like a game state
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, Cam did get a what would have been a game rules violation if we were a sanctioned event with
Yeah.
actual judging. But
Yeah, that's right.
anyways, you
Matt should
can't
have blocked with his.
you can't
like.
wave. Yeah,
If
well,
he
you
gave him a
should've-
shot, he should have just blocked.
Well, you
That's
should have waved out your worship against the other. Anyways, punts were happening. Didn't matter. Opalescence Lock was pretty good against Matt Perlman's sweet 5-color Armageddon list, which we'll see 3 times on coverage.
Yep.
Because he had just a coverage mat from being at the top table. Then he won and had the winning in, and then he lost and then everyone else drew. So then it was Cam's winning in. So he's on the feature match 3 times.
So
And he lost 3 times. Shout out Matt Perlman. Sorry, bad beats, but your deck is sick.
I lost to Matt in the first round, so I was playing with my back to the wall from round 1.
Yeah.
You also lost first round, right?
Yep, I lost first round to
So-
the Rock. But yeah, I don't know. Cam, do you need a buggy last words
I have no last
before
words. We're
we
good.
transition to we segue to the part where Mike and I just talk infinitely?
No.
DI, as the boomers would
DI.
say.
It was a fun day. I'm glad everybody came out. Hope we can do it again. That's it.
All right. Cam, where can people find you? Because they're going to be like, Enchantress is super sick. You are now the Enchantress authority. You're the highest placing Enchantress person of the moment.
Wow.
He's the enchanter, I think.
Yeah, he's the Enchanter. He's Zer.
You're Zer?
Zer the
Put
Enchanter.
any weird
You're
names
weird.
around, yeah.
Magic, man.
Yeah, where can people find you if they need to reach out and ask you questions about how
Oh man, you're now putting him on the
Enchantress
spot to
and
answer
software.
randos questions.
All right,
That's what we're here
I've
for.
got a Twitter account that's public. It's my name, Cam Fulton, Fulton. I barely check it. If you want to DM me or whatever, go ahead. If I get back to you, cool. I'm also in the like Premodern Discord. I actually don't know what my username is, but if you just like post and you're like, "Hey, is Cam here?" Maybe I'll see that.
I'll try to link it up. Cam, thank you so much for joining us, and thanks to or congrats, Cam Fulton, the Cam Fulton. Cam, are you the Cam Fulton or Cam
No, it's
Fulton?
just my name.
At Cam Fulton.
That's it.
Okay.
It might be a picture of me without a beard, which might be confusing.
It is
people sitting in front of me.
It is
Yeah.
really confusing. You are unrecognizable.
Yeah, I know it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
I'll change it.
Yeah.
I said I don't look at it, man. I don't know.
Yeah. Are your DMs even open? Your DMs aren't even open. Just tweet at it.
Sorry, literally at me.
Yep. All right. Cam, thanks for joining the cast.
No sweat.
Okay, we're going to transition to the part where Mike and I talk about, what should we talk about first? Should we talk about the secret deck? Should Lan do 10 minutes on the secret deck, which is no longer a secret?
Not really. I can do as much as you want.
All right. Come on down.
Right. Should I get a cup of coffee?
We should provide the coffee, but unfortunately, the budget's low. We're currently jockeying chairs.
So we played in a tournament today, and then we got chicken. Now we're at Lan's house.
Which is near the tournament venue, or it's actually in an
Ish.
undisclosed location because we don't want stalkers. We don't want the Spike Colony groupies showing up at Lan's door being like, what decks you got in there, Lan? What's cooking? What's next?
Why do they talk like that?
Because they're nerds. Okay. Lan takes that microphone. Mike and I will share this one. So, should we talk about how we betrayed your trust? Or should we just water under
It's
the
not really a
bridge now?
we.
Yeah, I don't think it's a big deal. But the main thing was like, I did bring a deck to the meetup, and I had built it from theory, and it performed pretty much like how I wanted it to, and kind of outperformed expectations. So I just kind of wanted to shut it down, and then you guys talked about it, which is like fine, I guess? Question mark. But I would have appreciated a little heads up.
The podcast apologized to Lan profusely. The resulting fallout from this was that as penance, Michael J would not leak any more info and not test with the other Lan H. When in fact, what should have happened is that the Lan H's should have tested with each other and put Mike on an island because he's a leaky faucet or he's a leaker.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing was like I normally wouldn't care at all, except for the fact that I was playing in this tournament, and I guess I have that kind of old school mentality, where like the way modern decks are now, are the way Magic behaves currently, where like all the information is just scraped from all the websites, right? Whereas like in the old days, it was just like a bunch of dudes sitting in caves.
Yeah, you could actually brew a deck and then like show up to a big tournament and just like come out of nowhere and like whatever. But what resulted was like an entertaining treasure huntish experience for fans of the Spike Colony podcast
And Mana's
like
podcast, really.
and Mana's podcast of trying to reverse engineer this deck because I had left a trail of breadcrumbs in the form of just like, oh well, there's Oath, Get in Cataclysm, Mulch, Blessings.
It sounds like you gave the whole list away.
8-man lands, but like the configuration, like, you know, people had so many questions because I didn't mention what we're oathing out. I didn't mention if there were Mox Diamonds. Like, there's Mulch. Is there Mox Diamonds? Is there 30 lands? Is there 17 lands? So like there was still a lot that was unknown about the deck, and it was really funny because I apologize to you personally, and I'm apologizing to you publicly because, you know, I was just I thought that once it had showed up to the meetup, it was just out. But, you know, I was also clout farming because we've been using your ingenuity to push our stature forward to give us more power as pre-modern influencers. And just be like, we've got this guy. He just brews these decks and they're all bangers. Yeah,
And still.
he just like he goes full forward.
Arcane Lab.
So we'll deal with this early. We can officially reveal the secret deck, or Lan D taxless Lan D tax.
Well, the funny thing was, the deck performed like kind of anemically today.
Yeah,
certainly I did.
It didn't have a great day, but that could have been for a number of reasons. But let's run it down.
I was gonna say real quick.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of a fallout from you guys like talking about it. Sam Black messaged me
Yeah.
and asked for the deck list, right? And I was like, all right, but you know.
When Sam Black gets the deck list.
Shout out to you.
But I told him, I was just like, look, you know, I may be playing this like 1.5K, you know, just
Keep it tight.
yeah, don't go running your mouth like the way Mike would, right?
Yeah.
And then he's like, no, of course not.
He's like, you can trust me.
He's like,
I'll just give it to BK. and then we'll just play it. And then other people in Madison will play it. And then those other people in Madison will message Lanny and just be like, yo, Sam and BK are playing Lan's deck. And I was like, I know.
Well, BK is like my primary collaborator in a lot of things. Like he built a duplicate sealed with me, and he's just like a long-time friend. I've known him for almost like probably longer than 25 years. I personally think I've known him for about 24 years, but he claims that he's
No, you guys met at Chicago.
He said he knew me before that.
Yeah. So the story is that Lan was kind of like a celebrity, and BK had like known, like BK knew Lan, but Lan didn't know BK. So
we were all at U.S. Nationals 1998 together, because that's when I first met you IRL.
No,
98.
You weren't in Chicago, 97.
I would.
The one where
That Randy one.
yeah.
I was not there.
98 was the first time.
Yeah, and I think that's when I met BK in real life too. So maybe because did you do the gauntlet with us?
Yeah.
So
I gave you guys a deck, and then I fell asleep, and then you guys gave me $28 later.
yeah.
Right. So that was pretty.
So you did the gauntlet with us. BK won the gauntlet.
Yeah. It was
Yeah. So
sloppy.
maybe that's when you. Maybe that's when.
Oh no. Yeah. I didn't know that it was Brian who won it. Like BK won it.
Yeah.
You guys described him as some random guy.
Yeah. I wasn't friends with him yet.
Yeah. So okay. So. It's
all right, does anybody need more context than that? Or
Okay,
should
so this is actually the greatest thing ever. I wish we could still do this. Right. So we in 1998 U.S. Nationals, we did this thing called the Gauntlet, right? And God bless them, the people who ran U.S. Nationals just let us use their microphone and drum up business. So we have like 5 stations. You gave us a certain amount of money, and then like if you could beat all 5 stations with your deck, then we gave you like 5 times your money or something like that.
No, it was more than that, but I think it was like $5 or $10, right?
Yeah.
And the 5 decks were like Frost Bloom, Draw Go, Burn.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't Oath, right? But it was just like 5 different.
Very different decks played by like pro level players.
Yeah, and these were like the best decks in Type 2.
Yeah.
Right.
But they were all played by pro level players,
Yeah,
and they were all very different from each other. So
DIs, if you will.
yeah. Did we play with sideboard, or was it one game?
Like I said, I gave
fell
you guys, I gave you guys Draw-Go.
Yeah.
I fell asleep, and I was like pretty poor, right? I was like dead broke at U.S. Nationals '98, and then when I like, woke up, you guys were like, "Here's your share," and you guys gave me $28, and I was like, "Oh my god."
This is great.
Yeah. But what I was saying was like, so Sam actually played the deck at his home game, and this can dovetail into a discussion on the deck itself, and he really liked it. He went 3-0, and he lost a 4-0 match against Burn, despite being in what seemed like an unlosable position with a turn 2 Warmth and 0 Orb early and around 60 life. Right, but he did cite in a Chroma,
Yeah.
and then like cited out a blessing, so he got all his like blessings caught by the Tormod's Crypt, and then with like 15, 20 cards left in his deck, just had to concede. Because he knew that he couldn't do enough damage in time, because his opponent decided to just focus all his instant speed removal.
On the man lands, yeah.
Right.
That's actually a wild ending to a match. That's kind of sweet for the burn player.
Yeah, I talked to Sam, I was like, you didn't cite in a Chroma? He's like, now I know I need to.
Well, actually, I don't cite in a chroma. So when in the parfait days, I actually didn't cite in a chroma. I cited out Shard Phoenix. I just tried to hit Chosen, but that's because in the parfait days you had other win cons of Zer's Weirding,
Yes.
or Concession.
Yes.
There's weird.
Well, you would just bless your Chosen and just win with your Chosen eventually. But yeah, if you hit Shard Phoenix when you needed to hit Chosen, like you would just win if you hit Chosen. So then they would always bolt their own creature, and then.
Well, in this case, right, like he got rid of all of Sam's blessings.
Yeah, right.
Right. So it's like even in the old days of parfait, if you didn't have any blessings, you'd be in a tough spot.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Lanny didn't have any blessings when he was playing in the top 8 against Smiths.
No, I had blessings, but I was.
He cryptid you.
He cryptid me because I didn't hit a blessing.
Okay.
So I oathed into Shard Phoenix. I hit like 30 cards on my deck and didn't hit a blessing. So he cryptid 30 cards out of my deck, and then my deck was just like no Shard Phoenix, no like whatever. So my deck was just like a Chroma, some Engineered Plague, situation, basically nothing. But let's go ahead and finally run down Lan D, no longer secret deck, which we're still hyped on. Mike called it before the tournament the best deck in pre-modern. we'll have to prove it eventually, I guess, or we'll have to count on Sam Black to prove it next week at Misty Mountain Games, September 23rd, live on twitch.tv, Cloud Go Ranger, the Misty Mountain Fall Cup, Fall Brawl, Fall something. That is 4 Oath of Druids, 3 Blessing, 1 Zurin Orb, 4 Mulch, 3 Scroll Rack, 1 Sylvan Library, 2 Seal of Cleansing, 2 Abeyance, 1 Ancestors Chosen, 1 Shard Phoenix as the Oath monsters, 2 Enlightened Tutors, 4 Plows, 2 Wraths, 2 Armageddons, a Mox Diamond, and then the rest is 8-man lands and a mix of, Brushland,
And
Core Haven,
Core Haven.
and fetches. So talk us through, one of the things that I think is weird about you, Lan, is that most people start building pre-modern decks by looking at other pre-modern decks. But it sounds to me like you kind of start more from scratch, although this was maybe an effort to make a parfait Oath style deck in the age post land tax. So where did this come from?
Well, it wasn't intentional. I actually I wanted to build a better Terrageddon deck at first, right? Because I remembered the Austin Marrowgeddon deck from U.S. Nationals 1997, right? The Lance Dakota PSI controlling Marrowgeddon deck.
I learned so much from that deck.
Yeah, which was weirdly 61 cards, but it had Thawing Glaciers and Sylvan Libraries and Abeyances, and they never lost a counter. Conventional wisdom was that Counterpost just crushed Marrowgeddon, but they built their deck in such a way that, and with a specific strategy, that they never lost a Counterpost, right? And a lot of it was developing a land base, or developing your mana with Thawing Glaciers, and then just Abey, Geddon. Right, usually that's the way it went. And then you had a Thawing Glaciers in hand, and then
Hence the 2 Abeyances in this main deck.
Well, the Abeyances just seems really good. So, but I began thinking about that, but I just thought, and I'm clearly wrong about this, I thought that Terravores just weren't that good, right? They seem really good, but they're just big, dumb guys, right? And maybe that's me being conditioned in contemporary Magic, where, with Tarmogoyf's just not good enough anymore, right? Creatures just have to do something. And I also thought that Terravores didn't seem really impressive in a world where just plows were ubiquitous. But again, it seems like I may be wrong about that.
Was it green-white Terravore deck finished second in the tournament?
Yeah, and Terravores are the most popular creature. It's the hot creature again, right?
Yeah, I mean, speaking about Terravore, the whole point, me as a big Career and Dryad fan, it's you're not flying in the face of, you don't think you're better than Plowshares, right? But you're, 1, not every deck has Plowshares, and then 2, not every deck that has Plowshares is going to draw more Plowshares than you have Terravores. And once you play it, 1 is that most Swords to Plowshares decks are, green-white, or sort of mid-rangey, whatever. So the only decks that find and cast their Swords to Plowshares quite consistently are Landstill and Blue-White Stifle Knot. So even in the land tax era, your parfait deck, if you didn't have an active land tax, and you saw this if you watched my match against Rich in the PSS, I had a Meddling Mage on Oath in the early game. Rich didn't have Tax Rack online, so he found 1 counterspell. I countered his 1 counterspell. He had 1 Plowshares. I countered 1 copy of Swords to Plowshares. The next one was probably 15, 20 cards down. I had infinite time. So Meddling Mage or no Meddling Mage, it kind of seems like, you still want your fatty to be mana efficient, and there's no power toughness efficiency in pre-modern outside of Terravore and, plug for Career and Dryad, but yeah, Terravore is the most efficient.
I'd really rather hear from Lan and his green-white deck, but seriously, what was the biggest Kyrian Dryad you had in the PSS?
Probably 2 to 3 power.
Yeah, so you had a 3/3 once, and it was a turn that you would have won even if it was a 2/2. True or false?
True.
All right, so So, your 2 mana for a 1/1 isn't impressing anybody.
Yeah, I mean, but that's kind of how the PSS broke. Like, at the end of the day, right? Like the whole like Courier and Dryad concept is just that it costs 2 mana, and if your opponent does anything, you'll counter their spell, and then it'll be like bigger. And like I've literally thought of everything. I've thought of playing Call the Herd in the deck. I've thought of playing Brush Hopper, and I wanted to talk about this on the cast. Maybe not right now, but I'll just say the quick plug is that like 3 is 1.5 times more than 2. It's amazing the big difference between 3 is from 2, and that's why Dryad is like inescapable in the Grotog shell. And I think Terravor has the same thing, because the Terragon decks can play stuff like Exalted Angel, can play it can play Blastoderms, or whatever. They can play any green fatty, but the fact that the Terravor costs 3 mana, and your Mox Diamond decks that are often accompanying Terravor, in addition to pumping it up, like don't have to work too hard hitting land drops all the way up to 4 or 5 to hit their fatty. Like Terravor is just the most efficient creature right now for a green deck. So that's just how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, like the Terravor again, doesn't have trample or it. Again, I'm wrong, right? I'm probably wrong just because of how successful Terravor has been. But when I was building the deck, my sense was that Terravor just didn't seem really impressive, right?
Yeah, he's a dummy.
Yeah, he
just gets plowed. I mean, I plowed Terravor, and I was so obsessed with plowing Terravor in my game that it ended up being a punt. But anyways, I think that where you took the deck was better at leveraging Oath of Druids than a deck that ran Oath of Druids and Terravor, because you had more. Your deck has more of the Parfait feel, and that Oath of Druids is used as a prison element.
Well, one thing that was, and I guess a lot of people like glommed onto this, and maybe why Land Tax ultimately got banned, is that Parfait plays Magic. It violates like fundamental axes of Magic, right? Like it prevents your opponent gets punished for playing land. Your opponent gets punished for playing creatures. So if you're playing against Parfait, you really can't play lands or creatures, right? Which is just like not how people like to play Magic. Yeah, people just like casting creatures, and then
they're playing a land so they can cast a creature.
Right, yeah, more or less. But I thought that Oath still represented that kind of like element, right? It violated a fundamental norm of Magic.
And I like to, one of the things is that people have this mentality that they have this sort of right to like be able to like play a creature and for it to be good, and that's just like not how pre-modern era works. It's actually not how modern era works. So like one of the big problems like people are saying for like in the modern era is just like, oh, Fury and before Fury Plague Engineer are too good because they punish creature-based strategies. But the problem is that the creature-based strategies are completely broken. If you can flood the board with a bunch of 1-mana creatures and just like win the game off that in the form of like Humans was pretty tame, but like in the form of like some sort of goblins or elves situation, like in pre-modern, goblins and elves are broken decks. So cards like Oath of Druids and Engineered Plague, like they're backstops to how broken those two decks are, because they're not creature decks. They're not like they're beat down. They're not Savannah. Yeah, they're very linear. They're not about like 2-power guy into 3-power guy into like attack with 3 people, like Glorious Anthem or something. Like if the Goblins deck was like a Goblin King Mog Flunkies deck, nobody would be complaining, but
nobody would be playing it.
Yeah. So the fact that Oath of Druids, Shard Phoenix, Chosen prisons out these decks, it's because these decks are broken, and then you can still lose to them, even if you have Oath. So
yeah, and then I guess like the other thing is that to talk about the tournament today, it seems like a lot of people kind of like went one step beyond that kind of prison element or the anti like aggro element by just you saw the performance of combo essentially at the tournament today. You yourself played a combo deck.
Yeah, my whole like my calculus for playing Replenish was one to out Michael J, who for consecutive tournaments has always asked me what I'm playing and then picked a deck to beat what I'm playing.
How has that worked out for me though?
Really well. Yeah, just really good strategy. But the real reason was, so I was locked in on playing Grotog up until for this tournament.
Grotog?
Yeah, which my championship deck. It was just because it's a storyline play, right? So
He won the PSS with Growatok.
yeah. So on Thursday,
This is worse than how I pick a deck,
You,
right?
you owe nothing to your past.
I owe
Every day's a
Lan.
good day.
I know you're not an avid Spike Colony listener, but I'll let you in on something. The only thing that decides whether or not you win or lose a match of Magic is if you have plot armor, and the plot armor is thick with me playing Growatok. It won me the PSS. I was just gonna ride that into the tournament, except we had a local meetup, the pre-big tourney meetup, Thursday. 11 people showed up. I looked at what they played. Everyone's just playing these like black mid-range decks, Rock, Draco Explosion, Dead Guy Ale. And as much as I think that black mid-range is a struggling archetype,
But we'll go with.
it defeats Growatok.
Yeah, like no one, like I don't think anyone's going to play their real decks at that meetup, right?
Some people actually need the reps because they don't have closed door testing sessions with,
Like, would we played more than 20 hours just
Yeah.
for this tournament?
So some
But I
players
would-
needed the meetup because that was their reps.
I would have played 0 hours, but Mike needed to test.
Yeah. Sick Mike burn.
I spent 2 weekends clearing testing.
Quick peek behind the curtain. Mike normally bullies everyone, but then Lan gets to bully Mike. So I love watching Lan bully Mike.
I'm come on, I'm like a saint. I'm just a guy. I'm just, hey guys, what's going on?
Yeah.
I just like the, but it's true. But it wasn't just you. Oh, also, I will say when I built this, like, Mike did say he always tries to at these meetups to build decks that beat you, right? He's like, I got to figure out what Landy's playing, and I like to build a deck I like to play a deck that beats what Landy's playing, right? And then I was like, oh, I'm gonna build a deck that beats what you're playing, and I literally thought Mike was gonna build something like the Life deck, so I was like, I'm gonna build Oath Obliterate. Right, just like a red green do nothing deck with like Oath Obliterate and the Windsor Guy's Blessing. Right.
That would probably beat me, yeah.
But then I just couldn't get it to work, and then I was like, I'm gonna go back and start tooling with like the green-white version because I think this is way more. I think like Wrath and Geddon are just more efficient than like Jackalhops, which just get countered anyway. Right?
Yeah.
And Obliterate, which just takes like it's 8 mana, and I was just imagining these nightmare scenarios where I would just cast Obliterate versus like a Stifle Knot deck and just have them gush in response, right? And I would just puke all over my $300 pants, right? And it was just like not the scenario that I enjoyed, but I did buy them. I bought
Obliterates.
I bought Obliterates, but they were the list Obliterates at first, right?
Nice.
With the little like
Yeah.
So then I had to buy the original Obliterates.
Why'd you just go straight to the real stuff?
Oh, you think I did that on purpose?
Yeah, you just accidentally get the list
Yeah,
all the
yeah.
time.
You think I did it on purpose, and then when I got them, I was like, oh, these aren't as cool. These aren't as cool as I thought they were. Right. No, I misclicked, right? And then I bought. But I was talking to my friend Bert Jones, who like Brian Kowal is like another collaborator of mine. He's like an old friend of mine from Austin, Cube aficionado, and just loves like these weird old formats. And he was giving me some ideas for Oath Obliterate. He's like, oh, what about Overmaster?
Yes.
What's Overmaster?
Burning Wish for Overmaster are the next sorcery spell you cast this turn can't be countered, draw a card. And it's also a sorcery. I have it in the sideboard of all my Burning Wish decks
You didn't
that
play it
can't
in-
play Duress.
You didn't play it in.
Well, because I can play Duress in Parfait, but if I play a Burning Wish deck that can make black mana, then I'll play Overmaster. So that I can resolve my
Is this like
Tinkers
the
or Replenish or
red
something.
version of Insist?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I bought like 4 Overmasters, and
That sounds great.
yeah. So I bought a bunch of this.
Why don't you just play Overmaster
draws a
every
card.
day? It draws a card.
Well, it's sorcery. I mean, yeah. Again, we talked about this, right? And because I was imagining this world where I had like Sylvan libraries in play and like Oath or whatever, and I just like obliterated, right? And it's kind of like a different version of the Cataclysm world that Mike envisioned for some reason, except for
Well, let's talk about Cataclysm.
well, So when I originally built a deck, I took it to the meetup, and I didn't know whether I wanted more Gens or more Wraths. I kind of wanted 3 of each. It felt like.
More Giddens or more
Oh
Cataclysms?
yeah, no, more Gens and more Wraths, right?
Oh, okay.
I wanted 3 of each, and I was like, I'm just gonna play 2 of each, and then I'll split the difference, right? I'll have 1 Cataclysm, and I'll be kind of like half of a Geddon, half of a Wrath, right? And I had 1 of each in the sideboard, and every time I'd read a Cataclysm, I was like, well, this card is the worst card I've ever seen, right? And so I immediately just took it out of the sideboard, right? And then I went towards all Wraths and all Geddons. And then during our playtesting, Mike was very insistent, right? He was like, I think Cataclysm is just really good. We need it to deal with like the enchantment decks. It's good against goblins. You would side it in against elves, right? And I was like, I don't know. I tested it. I think it's just garbage. But Mike was very insistent. He mentioned this like about 10 times. And I said, look, if you feel this strongly about it, we'll add it to the deck. And we did.
Well, it's just one copy in the sideboard. Yeah.
It was bad.
It was bad.
Every time I drew it, it was bad. I just wish it were a Wrath or a Geddon. Like, the thing that was like the most heartbreaking was I always envisioned specific players who I want to beat, right? Like, so Cam was on my list of players to beat. He beat me on Thursday, playing Enchantress, and I'd played him like the last 5 meetups in a row, and I was pretty sure he was going to play Enchantress. And I'm like, we have no way to deal with Cam if he has 2 Sterling Groves in play. So then I'm like, Cataclysm. But then I saw that Cam was playing Mox Diamond, and I'm like, because if I cast Cataclysm, he's going to be like 3 cards ahead of me. Like, every single time.
So fundamentally, my question to you is like, why don't we just talk to Cam? Like, why isn't your strategy against the Enchantress deck to like stop them from drawing cards so they never see 2 Sterling Groves?
How am I supposed to do that? I'm playing a slow ass deck.
Well, you have Oath to deal with Argothian Enchantress,
Yeah.
and then you have
Wrath.
Seals. You also have Wrath for Enchantress, and then you have Seals and Disenchants. No Disenchants, 1 Disenchant sideboard,
One
2
naturalized,
Seals,
2 Seals.
natural. Yeah, so
We went up to 5 originally, but Mike went to go.
yeah, I mean, Ray of Revelation feels
No,
like a slam dunk
We
here.
tested Elves post board, and Lan never had problems killing all of my survivals. Like, that was never a factor. So I decided.
Yeah, but Ray of Revelation is good against Cam.
No, you can't beat Cam. He has 2 Sterling Groves in play.
Not.
He always
If you have
has
Ray
2.
of Revelation.
He always has 2
only has
Sterling
it
Groves.
after the engine
No.
set. If you
Always has 2
Ray of
Sterling Groves.
Revelation, you disrupt the engine twice as efficiently.
No wonder he did so well at the tournament. He's able to start with
Yeah,
two.
he always he companion zones 2 Sterling Grows, but also they're in play.
It's like those old Chandelar games. Do you remember those?
Yeah. So okay, this is important. This is take a shot whenever Mike plans 3 cards in his deck around like in a wild corner case. The what if they have 2 Sterling Groves
It's
in play?
not what if
corner
I
case.
played him 5
Again, but so
meetups in a row. He always has 2 Sterling Groves in
but
play.
you can see fundamentally how different Mike and I approach like magic building. Right? Mike is envisioning sitting like, he
sees the player. He
sees like the wrist tied together like in the Beat It video, right? And it's Cam tied to his wrist, and it's like they're engaged in a knife fight to the death. And I'm just like thinking that Enchantress is a terrible matchup, right? Because it's just like they're just like this deck is really good at fighting Stifle Knot, Land Still, and board and like aggro, right?
Yeah, goblins.
Yeah, for example. But I think
It's kind of replacing Parfait in that role.
yeah, and I think it's bad against like the Replenish, FEB, Enchantress type decks, combo decks, right? We have like a Plunder's Chance, like a Banzas and Geddons, right? And I kind of feel bad for Avery Williams who played Mono Blue Storm, right? We certainly can't lose to him. In a
So
million
he
years.
was like, I cut all the Words of Wisdom from the deck because Parfait's gone, so it doesn't feel like there's a lot of Blessing decks left. And then he just
he played
manages
both
to
of
run
us.
into both Lan and Mike playing 3 guys Blessing main deck, which he like literally can't beat. You guys didn't even play, right?
No, so we played only game 2. Like the first game is like, we'll just say you won the first game. We just go straight to game 2.
Yeah.
Right? And then we sideboard like open in front of each other, right?
Yeah.
And then he got a pretty good game 2. He went off, got Tormod's Crypt, went off and brain froze for 9, right? So that's 27 cards. And his plan was to hopefully hit all the blessings in that and then just Crypt, right?
But you can't hit all the Blessings. You have to hit them in a clump because you resolve 3 at a time. So you can't hit multiple Blessings unless 2 Blessings get hit by the same copy of Brain Freeze. Because the Blessing triggers go on the stack to interrupt the Brain Freeze. So it's not Brain Freeze for 27, it's Brain Freeze for 3 9 times.
Okay, so he cheated me.
Yeah.
right?
Well, regardless,
So let's open an investigation.
regardless, he played against both of us.
Oh, but I had a brain freeze. I had a blessing in my hand. But regardless, yeah. So even today, it felt like I played no Magic at all because I lost to eventual champion Mike Harris right on Feb. He just
Horrible matchup, combo deck.
yeah, I didn't even know how the deck worked. Right?
Yep.
And I don't even know if
We still don't know how the deck works.
I don't even know if he
I
actually.
definitely explain this to you.
I don't even know if he's just like telling you the truth and he's just saying stuff. He's like, okay, you've taken 28 damage. And I'm like, walk me through this. And I'm like, that can't be right. You know, but regardless, right? He just, he
Most
said,
of our reaction, Mike literally did this all day up until the finals, and then he did it in the finals. I think Mike Flores and myself might be the only ones who know basically how the Hermit FEB combo works, and like nobody else knew. I explained the replenish combo to 5 out of 6 of my opponents. I explained it to all 6 of my or all 5 of my Swiss opponents I drew in the last round to get in.
They were all like me before LobsterCon last year. I didn't know how. I'm like, oh yeah, tell me about power level or
Yeah.
what is this?
I mean,
One of my opponents was like, oh, I remember this deck in Standard, and I was like, it was worse in Standard than it is now. But yeah, so same thing with Mike Harris, except for what's crazy. But I mean, he'll talk about it on his podcast. But as many sharp pre-modern listeners would know, deck is very hard to interrupt the combo with various hate pieces like Crypt, Swords to Plowshares, Meddling Mage, all this stuff. Like it's just very hard to interact with if you just don't know what's happening to you. But
and usually, right, with a lot of decks, if you do, disrupt them, you really like disrupt them, right? But here you have to respond to the unearth, right? And so you get like one piece, and it's just like
Yeah, they have a deck full of pieces.
yeah,
It's not even good,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's fucking bullshit. Right? But to be honest, right, and I don't want to sound like a boomer, right? Because I'm a cool guy, but I do think that that's one of the weird like contentions I have with like pre-modern, is that the decks are becoming like so abstract now. Right? So when pre-modern, when I was first like sold on pre-modern, I was like, oh, this is like
it's the rock versus land still.
yeah, this is the Magic the way you remember it, right? Some people are casting goblins, some people are casting counter spells, right? You can still play Oath, it's cool, but now these decks are like these weird like niche corner rollings, right? Where it's like, well, if you have was it like Volrath Shapeshifter, we're holding priority, right? you could pitch like Phyrexian Devour to it and then like flip up a bunch of cards and it doesn't die because then you survival up Triskelion and suddenly it has 28 counters, You're like, oh, well, that's weird. Or like, oh, but then if at the top creature is a Palinchron, you can untap all your lands and you get a bunch of, and then you make it into a Sanctog, right? And then you eat all the graveyard, and then the last card happens to be in a chroma. And then you jam in, and you're just like, what is going on, right?
It's a really bigger chroma.
This is
Yeah.
Magic as Garfield intended.
No, but yeah, and that's what I'm saying. And that's just like one deck, and then you have like another deck where it's like, well, what happens is, right, I have this enchantment, right? And then I have this enchantment, and I have this enchantment. And if I just go and phase out all my lands, right? And then I phase out this other enchantment that makes the thing, right, a creature, right? Then I'll come back and my land's also untap, and then I get infinite mana, right? So these are just, and that's what, and these are kind of like hard sells, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
But it's like I don't know. Mike said this in his original article. Is like pre-modern games either last 3 turns or like 15 turns, and then play draw doesn't matter except for sometimes it really, really matters.
If your opponent is Goblin Lackey. That's actually one of the most keen observations anyone's ever made about pre-modern. It was land set. I can't remember who you said it to, but you're just like, the fact that Goblin Lackey exists is actually one of the best things about pre-modern.
It acts as a limiting factor.
Like,
Yeah.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Right, because it just forces like decks to have turn 1 interactions, right?
Yeah, I mean, Goblin Lackey is. I mean, that's kind of why people think that Ragavan is still healthy for modern. And I won't comment on that, but I kind of felt like. I guess we won't get into it, but land tax was a good limiting factor
Ragavan
too.
draws 2
I
cards
agree.
per
Yeah.
cycle. I mean, the Goblin Lackey is like a walking Black Lotus sometimes, but it doesn't draw any cards. Ragavan draws 2 cards per cycle. It's very different.
So do you think that Lackey should be eroded to draw a card? Like an Ophidian?
Well, I'm thinking like when Lackey hits you, you should make it Lotus Petal, obviously. And then we'll go from there.
Yeah.
Because it makes complete sense that a monkey would just make a lotus petal every time it hit you.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because turn 1 interaction is so bad for colors that aren't white. And then, like...
Red's good.
Well, red's good, but then red's not, like, good at dealing with enchantments. And then so you have, like, this double pressure where it's, like, lackey survival of the fittest. And, like, it's really hard for the same deck to deal with both. Unless, of course, it makes white mana, in which case it can easily deal with both. But,
Wait, do it... Oh, no. Goblins is good at that.
Goblins is not good at coping with survival of the fittest.
Yeah, it is. Goblin Sharpshooter.
It's... Okay.
No, that's a different... Yeah.
Oh, you mean like in Breakfast?
No, just like as a card, like you can still your elves deck can still do something. Like the elves deck can just get their own goblin sharpshooter with haste, or get a fucking Masticore.
Yeah, let's not get. Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, this is neither here nor there. It's goblin like
I
is
liked
good for
when
the format.
Man was talking about the abstractions of pre-modern.
Okay.
That was some great content.
Okay, well, luckily it happened, and we recorded it.
Yeah, I mean, like it is just kind of tight, and like I don't want to. Yeah, and I don't want to just invest in a bunch of like crappy dual lands and weird cards, right? That just like, were 70 cents at one time and are now like $12 or whatever. To play like this version of to play the type of deck that I just couldn't explain to people, and I can't even explain to like a lot of people that are active in the format.
Yeah, I mean, Hermit FEB is like, I mean, that's just what it is.
Yeah.
Like, I think Hermit FEB, Replenish, even, I don't know, like
Enchantress to a degree.
Like, these cards are weird and goofy and they don't resemble new cards. So it is like, but that's the thing is like both these things happen at the same time. And like the fact that the rock is like kind of decent, it's not great against Hermit FEB and it's really bad against Replenish. So it's a horrible example.
Actually, the rock is literally Hermit FEB's best matchup.
Okay, so
Could never lose that match.
these mid-range decks like coexist with these like esoteric decks, and I think the blend that they produce together is a healthy format. We had a top 8 with 8 unique decks, including a Terravore deck, a Goblins deck, a Dreadnought deck, a Burn deck, two esoteric combo decks.
They were different from each other.
That are different from each other.
3, right?
Well, if you count Enchantress. Yeah, I mean, Enchantress is kind of fine.
It's more linear.
It's just like fundamentally, it's just like you get this thing going, and then like interacting with Enchantress is pretty straightforward, right? It's like if you get rid of these 2 things that draw them cards, then it's a lot harder for them to do anything. But like, timing your Naturalize or your Tormod's Crypt against a Replenish deck or a Hermit FEB deck is like much different. But anyways, all I'm saying is like you're right, but what this results in is just a format where Terravore is like the best creature in the format.
There were no mid-range decks really.
In the top 8.
Yeah.
I mean the Terravore deck I guess it was the Terravore Oath deck. It was like basically
It's just an in-game deck.
Yeah.
I mean it's kind of interesting.
It's just like a board control deck, right? So there's like, I mean, like, where were the rock decks and the
they were
the
playing
dead
them
guy,
in the Swiss.
Yeah, and the dead guy ale decks, right? I remember walking by the door, right, and I saw a bunch of these decks, right? A lot of swamps and lands that produce
Higher numbered tables were by the door.
Yeah.
in case you needed context for that. Yeah, but every dog has its day. Like the next tournament probably has a ton of mid-range. Like I think mid-range is well positioned if like the Rock is good against Cam's Enchantress deck. So he was like, I can't deal with Pernicious D. And the Rock sort of is good against Parfait, depending on the context. Was good against
like
Parfait.
the green white deck we played? I easily defeated the Rock.
Well, no. So now your deck is a lot better suited to the Rock because it's like still an Oath deck, and Oath is still good against the Rock, and then whatever. But Lan got rocked. Thanks to
we played against the same player.
Thanks to Blast. So both of you got rocked?
I
won though. Okay.
No, like I didn't lose because like my deck was outmatched, right? I lost because like my draws lined up poorly, and just my draws were also anemic.
Yeah, but I mean that's also why that's also a feature of the format where you just miss, right?
I mean, like
a lot of the decks miss where
if you're like a 70% favorite, that still means you're losing 30% of the time.
Yeah. I mean, I guess whatever. I mean, like
just as an example,
Your opponent's an active.
Dave
part of that,
Kaplan
though.
was first seed today, right? Blue White 12-12. He went like I think 2-2 on Thursday with Blue White 12-12. But in the debut tournament of Land's Green White deck, he played a beautiful game against Land. Like it's like the coolest game ever, right? Where it was Oath against 12. Was Oath? What creatures did you have?
You had
a Chroma?
In the sideboarded games, I had a Chroma and Ancestors Chosen. I sided out the Shark Phoenix.
So Dave was like literally triggering Oath every turn to get a 12-12, which is bigger than the Acroma. And there's a sub game going on between a stream of 12-12s and an Acroma. That's so cool.
It was like very difficult because I would have to deal with his 12-12, right? His Dreadnought. But usually I would plow, and that would just time walk. You know, it would give him like 2 turns to.
Right, but you can know the back guy. Yeah.
It was just like he gets 12 life right there.
So you weren't down to just block with your Chroma and then next hit's Chosen or something like that? Or was your Chosen plowed?
My Chosen was. I don't remember where it was.
Because the way I always locked out, before the Meddling Mage sideboard and the Parfait deck, I would lock out Dreadnought by having like multiple Oaths of Druids in play. And as long as you handle their plows, as long as your Chosen doesn't get plowed, and the game 1, they don't have a lot of plows. In game 2, they probably still shouldn't have a lot of plows. That just meant you could block with Chosen, gain 20, and then block with the same Chosen, and then they would just can never win.
I only had 1 Oath. I couldn't get like this.
Yeah, you can quite cycle it through. But even then, if you block with Chosen, take 12, gain 24, then you're still in business. But you have 3 blessings too, which is... Well, no, that doesn't matter. It just matters how deep the Chosen is. But regardless,
yeah.
What was our point about that matchup? Like, do we feel like the deck is like...
No, because like I think Land was just saying that like his draws just didn't line up well, right?
Yeah.
And he said something that I've said a variation of a ton of times. Like even if you have an overwhelming matchup, it's 80% matchup,
yeah, you have
20% of the time.
You have aces against 9s.
Yeah, that's true.
80-20. Right?
I think everyone at this table overestimates their win rate against the Rock, though. I'm not. I've lost to the Rock too, and I obviously didn't play well.
I've
but
lost to the Rock.
Yeah, we've all
46% of the time.
We've all lost to the Rock, right? But then some decks lose to the Rock more than others, and I think our deck loses to the Rock like 30% of the time, roughly, right? In the estimate, right? Whereas I think that, the Enchantress deck would lose to it
much more, yeah.
Yeah.
It's tough because it's like really hard to, like, one of the things about pre-modern is there's just like a low volume of play. And you also can't find, like, you can't cover all the Rock lists, you can't cover all the Rock pilots. So sometimes, for instance, I lost to Sylvain today because Sylvain had a bunch of Call to Herd, which is like not necessarily normal in the Rock, but it made a huge difference in the matchup.
But we're getting to these like corner cases of like where it's like, for example, where Mike used to always say, in Modern that Burn was like super favored against Affinity, right? Which no one in the world thought, right?
Except for
but Mike because Mike was like, well, I play 4 Kataki Wars Wages.
Yeah, but me and Roman never lost that match.
Right?
We won all these tournaments.
You just look at the math. You look at the statistics.
But we won tons of tournaments.
Yeah,
and never lost the matchup.
Again, Affinity has won a ton of tournaments also.
But,
and if you look at the math, right, Affinity is like 70% of all matches recorded.
I would argue.
But you also have 4 Kataki's Wars Wage. And that's what I'm saying, right? Yeah. So just because like we have these things, you have like variations of the Rock, right? Let's say like, well, this Rock started like 4 Tormod's Crypts.
Yeah. Right? So you're blended. You're just saying like you're good against blended Rock, and then there's just like a range of Rocks.
Yeah, let's look at the types of cards that Rock play. The type of cards that are in traditional versions of Rock, right? Like 8 walls. Well, those aren't very good against us, right? For example. So there's already not a lot of pressure, right? We're playing a lot of land destruction, which is like lines up well with Rocks like bad mana, right?
So you played against a deck today that had 4 Wallowbirds, right?
I didn't know the makeup of his deck. I didn't see him play any Blossoms, honestly.
Most people have Blossoms. He had Wallowbird. He maybe just didn't draw him against you.
Yeah, I mean, like you only play 4 walls in your Rock deck, but Wall of Blossoms again not a great card, especially when there's Oaths.
Yeah, triggers Oath. Like that's
right. And if you get like a Chroma's out, right? It's clearly they can't just beat a Chroma. I don't think you can ever beat a Chroma.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like what I don't know. Like I never tried to pull. Like I don't know. What's weird is that it feels like, if you expand the experiment out like far enough where there's some like adaptability on both sides, like it feels like Rock should be able to adopt a game plan. Like Rock has access to adopt a game plan that can kind of address like what you're doing.
I think
and like I don't know. Let's put it this way. Like we have a ton of respect for Rich Shea, and like it kind of feels like what he often does is like identifies things that don't look good. Like don't like I don't know. Like something will be the way that it is on paper, and then he'll identify the thing that makes it that way, and he can change the paradigm. So like let's take this example, right? So let's say you're like, okay, like the problem with Rock is that post board they'll trigger Oath, you'll get a Chroma into play, and then you can always like bless your Chroma. So like maybe the Rock deck actually can navigate, and because your deck doesn't play too much like interaction or counter spells, maybe you like the Rock deck can actually navigate to a place where it can just like eat a crypt to your Chroma, and then you're just a manlands deck, right?
But if you're a manlands deck, why don't you just activate a manland?
Well,
In response to an edict.
then all of a sudden, well, yeah, okay, that's okay.
Right. So,
But regardless, right? So, but the point is, right? You
We
can't
can have 4 decibels.
Yeah, but you can't leave one deck static and let the other deck be like, well, you know.
Right. Both decks are both. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is like, but no one is playing in it. We're not talking about an adaptable, a Rock deck, right? That's like been hunting this deck over time. We're just talking about the state of Rock decks,
Yeah.
right?
No, that's not what I want to bring. I just like want to say. I want to say like somebody could conceivably like. Okay, so like I see the range as like, okay, the Rock deck can take their existing 75, and they might be able to like adopt a strategy that just gives them 5 or 10% back, right? If they happen to have access to Central or like whatever. It's just like what we saw in our testing where we were like, okay, we're gonna play Rock against Blue White Stifle Knot, except for we're just gonna board out Pernicious Deed, and then Stifle Knot's gonna have 2 annuls and
Just a chance.
and Meddling Mage is always gonna name Deed, and then all of a sudden like it's a game theory thing where you can just like will they or won't they like.
I mean, again, but why? How come the Rock is the only beneficiary of this then?
Well, it's not. It's just because it becomes like a game theory thing of like both players can adopt different strategies. Like
Right, but the thing is, it's just like the Rock is a more known entity, and our deck is not right now a known entity, right?
Yeah.
So like, how are they getting all these like points? Right,
well,
from-
I don't know. No, sorry, I don't want to like. I don't know.
Wait, so-
my point isn't that like.
I don't think you can. I don't think that you can build decks that way. Like I think like you have to kind of assume that the decks that exist in the metagame are like relatively static, and then you plan to play against them with your new and novel and
Yeah.
ideas. And,
I agree with that. I
and
think
in
it's
fact, when you're testing, like this is actually something Lan called me on when we were testing. It's just like you developed a strategy to beat me with your Landstill deck. Like someone
That's not going to happen. Yeah.
someone who's playing against me cold will not have figured out how to do this
unless
right?
they're rich.
Like, rich might, but like random other Landstill players are just gonna lose, right?
Yeah.
Versus,
Okay, let's put it this way. So when this is actually a pretty common. This was a Twitter poll recently, which is just like when you say X has a X% matchup against Y, are you saying the 2 best X and Y players? Are you saying your X, like X is much better than Y, like that kind of thing? So it sounds like in this situation, just because you're saying like your deck isn't a known entity and their strategy is novel, you wouldn't consider
But
like.
I even think it lines up like the standard version of Rock
Yeah.
lines up poorly. Also.
No. I mean, I'm inclined to agree from like the base. I just think it's like, it would be hard to like because like when we ran Rock against Parfait, like basically Rock is a deck that can interact well with permanents, and then Parfait is the deck that like if it establishes land tax and like whatever, it can just like run out. So like the more slanted, like the more on point Rock deck was at like not triggering Oath when it didn't need to, or like whatever, that was one thing. But then it'd be another thing if like the land tax player like also had a plan in place, and there was like this back and forth. So, but my bottom line is just like, I don't know. Rock used to beat Parfait. This deck feels like it has some like because it doesn't have an undeniably awesome card advantage engine. It feels like, well, I guess maybe it's better because maybe Mulch is just better than land tax because you can't D to Mulch.
What was so again? When you say that you developed a strategy for Rock to beat Parfait, it's because of like the more recent iterations of Parfait, right? The older iterations of Parfait, what did they have? They had more rats and they had more Gettons.
Well,
And those were
Well, they
insane.
didn't have rats.
They had rats. Like that's why like when
Not starting from like not.
No, he's talking older than Rich.
Yeah, you're talking about Type 1 Parfait.
No, I'm talking about Parfait around like PSS.
Yeah, like
PSS 2022. There were like
okay,
versions.
the Sam Black Tax Rack deck only had Wrath and didn't have.
Yeah, but even before the other one, again, before that, right? Like,
Rich and Mark didn't have Wrath.
No, there was decks before. Rich
again,
and
yeah.
Mark.
Okay, so
Let me talk. Right.
Yeah.
There were lots of parfait decks right before like Rich's iterations later, right? That had like they were just like more standard like prison control style deck, right?
Yeah.
With oaths, taxes, Wrath, and Geddons, right? And the Wrath and Geddons were just insanely good against Rock, right? Like Rock just has bad mana and deals poorly with like mana denial.
yeah.
Right.
The fewer get-ins in Parfait, the better Rock looks into it.
Right. And the same thing with Wrath. Like Wrath was just surprisingly great against them too.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. Your deck has 2 Armageddons main and 1 side. So.
Yeah, and then we
Or Cataclysm.
Yeah, we could have gone up to like 3 of each.
Yeah.
Right? And obviously you want to draw them in the right order, right? But with like you try to ameliorate that.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm not denying that like that Rock can't be like tinkered and stuff, but I just think it's unfair when you do analysis, right? To say like, well, one side gets to like develop their strategy, the other side doesn't.
Yeah.
And
I think I mostly came from like I probably didn't describe my thing. I was like still working through my thinking, but my thinking was just like you're a permanent, like you leverage all your card advantage from permanents, and like the Rock is good at dealing with multiple permanents. So like I thought that like on paper, it would be similar to how Rock interacted with Parfait, but because like
we're playing like more big spells and more mana denial.
Yeah.
But
Right.
we don't get all our card advantage from permanents. Like we get card advantage from Mulch.
Yeah, card advantage from Mulch.
And then and then this card's not good against Mulch.
Yeah, and so you
Yeah.
sandbag lands from Mulch, and then you Armageddon them, and then you are ahead of them after the Armageddon. Also, the Mulch engine draws Wastelands and Dust Bowls, which are insane against.
Which are spells.
That's how I literally just when I played my Rock match in game 2, I put him to 0 permanents.
Although we're down to 3 Wastelands main and 1 Dust Bowl side.
No, yeah,
1 Dust Bowl, 1 Wasteland side.
Yeah,
So up to
but
4.
in the sideboarded games, I had 5 and 4 Mulch.
And,
Yeah.
and it would have been 3 Geddons in the old days.
Yeah, and Geddons, obviously, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I literally put him to no permanents. Like,
Yeah.
And then so I lost to him, right? But I do think that my matchup was just an.
Yeah, you had the plan. Yeah.
Yeah.
You should have been fine. I mean,
It doesn't. I mean, like you just lose.
Yeah,
right?
it happens. Yeah. No, I didn't want to harp on it like as like a thing. I just kind of like, maybe it was just the gag that we were just like, oh, we always beat the Rock, and then sometimes we lose to the Rock and it blows.
I mean, yeah, Mike will play Rock buddy matches, right?
Yeah.
Right. He will
Exactly.
do that. I mean, I do think the Rock blows, right? But I don't just say things, right? I'm not like your random guest or man on the street pre-modern.
Yeah. You're a man of science.
Yeah, I
which
mean,
is why we get along so well. We have 1 man of chaos and 2 men of science at the table.
it's like the Monty Hall problem.
Yeah. You just open one door.
Is the man behind? You open one door, you see, right, it's a man of science. Do you switch?
Shows the man of science.
I mean, if you're a man of chaos, you definitely switch.
Yeah.
Okay, well, is there anything else you want to share about the deck? I guess we kind of need the cat's out of the bag. So Sam and BK, whoever wants to play it next week in Madison, is going to have to know that
To not play the Cataclysm.
know to not
Really
play the
bad.
Cataclysm,
So-
and then know that people will be prepared. But yeah, I think the deck is really cool. Mike says it's the best deck in pre-modern.
Well,
You think? Do we need to do something else? Does it keep evolving, or
It
is
beats, if you think, like, what are the 3 best decks in pre-modern? Goblins, Landstill, and 12/12. It beats all of them handily.
Yeah, well, we know
I
that
beat
pre-modern's larger than those 3 decks.
Yeah.
I beat 100% of those matchups that I ran into today.
Yeah, which was
Except
none
I
of them. Yeah.
No, I beat Jordan.
Okay, cool. You beat Lancelot, yeah.
Yeah.
And it also beats, like, Mono Blue Storm. That's an easy matchup.
Yeah. But there's like so many random decks. That was like we have such a hard time with that. Like, pre-modern is just different, right? If you like can play well into the top 5 decks, you're still likely to, in a 6-round tournament, play against 4 decks that aren't in those top 5. Like, what my matchups? Rock, Dead Guy Ale, Goblins,
Yeah, the Dreamwalk.
Well, for the
me,
Goblins, remember, we talked at length about how hard matchup by Goblins can be, but I got lucky again. Dealer had me again. But, and I played against blue, I played against Bant Landstill, basically the same deck that you brewed up with Blessings and Landstill. Like it was like Landstill Oath with Blessings.
That sounds terrible.
And then I played against, well, yeah, you know that's terrible because you made the deck and I stomped you.
Not good.
Yeah, like a accumulated knowledge deck. And then I played against, so that was my winning in. Yeah, so it was Golems Landstill. Yeah, so I played 4. What was my 5th match? Oh yeah, and I played against the Bant Threshold deck. So like I played a bunch against a bunch of random deck. Like Bant Threshold is a deck with like Meddling Mage and stuff. Like, you know, he could have gotten me. I lucked out in game 2. I kept 5 lands and 2 non-land cards. Got my intuition dazed, but then I drew Exalted Angel,
Nice.
because I went to 4 Exalted Angels in the sideboard.
Because you
Good
learned from
freaking
your
call.
stupid PSS performance. I mean,
Where Exalted Angel, I'm just Exalted Angel deck.
I think I played against all regular. I mean, I played against Matt P and his weird
Terra,
terror,
5-color
whatever.
targeting.
He beat me first round. And then what else did I play against today? Elves, goblins, Landstill, but with Cloud of Fairies. Jesus Christ. And what are the other 2 rounds I played against?
Rock.
Rock, and did I play against Rock twice? Maybe.
Well, anyways, point of the matter is, we showed up, there was like 2 Goblins players, 1 Dreadnought player, 1 Landstill player, you know, in a field of 37. So even if you're like well prepared into those matchups, you're just gonna run into like a bunch of nonsense. And
Well, I do think that like if I had your matchups right, I probably would have fared better. Like,
Yeah.
in round 1, I don't know, maybe I should have won. Right? I don't think I like.
The deck you sounds impossible.
Well, I was ahead, and I was like drawing kind of like poorly after my Geddon, and then he was just able to achieve this critical mass, and he just went like nuts. It was insane. He had Auramancer with Astral Slide, and he was using it to.
yeah, it's a green-white slide value deck.
He was just using it to get like Seals of Cleansing to
Yeah.
blow up like every single thing I had, and then he did it with like Cartography to get like Dust Bowls, right?
Yeah.
And
He flipped the script on you.
Sounds like you needed a stabilizer.
yeah, or anything almost, right?
Maybe.
Like I was just, I was thinking about like Tormod's Grid. And in round 2, I played against like Mike, right?
Yeah, the Hermit FEB is just.
Yeah, and it just felt
That's
like,
your tournament right
yeah.
there.
And then in round 3, I got a bot, right? So I was just like, well, this is the most fun I've ever had. And
Yeah, your first half of your tournament.
Yeah.
It's like completely wash. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think I don't play decks. I don't play decks that don't make blue mana for the most part. So I just like don't like not drawing the cards I need in the right order. Because even blue decks don't draw the cards in the right order. You like do a bunch of digging and intuitioning and whatnot. But I think, yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's an interesting point. You're playing 3 Rack, 1 Sylvan. Rack is basically Sylvan, but was there any thought to just like run more Sylvans? Our friend Francisco is playing like 3 Sylvans in his deck. I played against 3 Sylvans. Yeah, no Rack. Well, he's not
He
playing
doesn't have
Mulch.
Mulch.
Yeah.
well, I think it's the opposite, right? You actually went. In fact, I had 2 of each at first, and I moved to 3 racks, 1 Sylvan.
Yeah.
And-
But it's kind of hard to hit Rack plus Mulch if you don't have any selection outside of that, right? No cycling lands.
You have tutors.
But that only gets 1 half. And then you tutoring for Rack is pretty bad.
Why?
Well, because you're down a card and they can disenchant it before you like get to put your Mulch. You need to get to set your Mulch up.
Isn't that true with anything that you get then? Like with tutor, that disenchant it before you could use it. But then you're just down a card.
Yeah, I mean some of the cards cash. You know, some of the cards. Well, it's just tutor is bad, but
So why didn't you? So then, right? But that's not. I guess like that's not the real point then, right? You're saying that I can't draw rack, but then I say I can draw rack.
well, no, you can't draw Rack and Mulch, right?
No, but they're good
You
independently.
just got a raw dog in.
You know they're good independently, right?
I am not a huge fan of independent Rack, but obviously you're not. You have 1 Mox Diamond deck, so you're not as many Mox Diamonds, so you're more likely to have cards in hand. I don't know. What's your average hand size playing this deck? Like how many cards can you kind of rack away with guys' blessings and like whatever? Right.
It depends, right?
Just don't play lands.
Yeah, if you don't play lands, right? Plus, you can just set up. It's just insane. You can just set up like insane mulches with rack.
Yeah. If you have it, obviously, if you have it,
If you draw a Mulch,
you just draw.
always like 9 cards.
Yeah.
Right. So like,
Like that's why this deck is really good against like random mid-range decks.
Right.
Right, and then like slow control decks because you could just like mulch.
Right.
And then,
so you kind of got mid-range and control covered, and then you have aggro covered because you're a good oath deck, and then you're just kind of weak to combo.
yeah, I mean, but that's
Most white decks are.
yeah.
No,
That's user
that'll be a
choice.
story for. Mike punted his winning in. We won't get into it. He just didn't pay for Mana Leak that he could have paid for, and then that was that.
Yeah.
I mean, when Lan found out that if I had lived that turn, I would have cast a
Ancestors Chosen
for
for a bunch of
21
life. Yeah.
next turn. He's just like,
Well,
yeah,
you
you really
punted.
did deserve the top.
So the lesson learned is that you eat lunch. Mike didn't eat lunch. He was hangry, and then he punted.
Opponent did have 2 plows in hand though, still. So.
But a meddling mage on file.
No.
No, but the
would
melee guys would have died to the rat.
Yeah.
Anyways.
I see all the angles.
Yeah. Well, because you can see your opponent's hand. Anyways. I mean, I don't know. Well, hopefully, I don't know. Is Sam Black going to change any cards? We won't leak it, but has he given any feedback?
I'm not sure. So
has he been like, Cataclysm is amazing? You should play 4 and play
no,
0
you gotta. I'm not gonna. I don't want to.
Yeah, okay.
I don't want to throw Sam under the bus here, but let's do it. Yeah. Because I first said him, he's like, oh yeah, can you send me the list? And I was like, well, here,
Don't tell anyone.
And then I sent it to him. He's like, maybe you'll do it like this, right? And he sends me back a version of like 3 Terravores and 3 Battlefield Scroungers, right?
Yep.
And I'm like, what is the deal with Battlefield Scroungers, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to offend Sam, so I.
He likes the 3/3 for 5.
Yeah, so
it's
I
like
was
a Morphling.
So I was like, you know what? I'll just
It's a 6/6.
I'll buy some.
Yeah, so you tried it and you're like,
No, I just bought them as a courtesy.
Okay.
Right, Sam. They're still in the
Promo
plastic
code
case.
Flores. Flores has also got Scroungers coming in the mail.
I have more. Right?
Yeah, he already has them. So,
But then he just played like basically my version, as I sent it to him with the updated version at his house tournament, and then he did well with it.
well, so he tried his blue-green Scrounger deck. That wasn't like too impressive. Or maybe it is impressive and he's like, just like, oh yeah, it wasn't that good. Like, cause he finished 5 out of 10 in a home game, but he's been doing fine with green white. Well, I whatever. Hope to see it next week.
I think Kowal didn't do well with it when he played, because he played the same home game with the same deck.
Well, he's a rock player, not a parfait player. So.
I think he's just people are just players, right? Either you're a player or
No,
you're
some
not.
people are rock players.
Are you a rock player?
Give an example of a player.
Michael J. Flores is a rock player. BK is a rock player. Jared's a rock player. Tom Matelski's a rock player. Fran's a rock player.
What is rock player a euphemism for something?
Look, some people are rock players and some people aren't rock players. I'm not sure if I'm a rock player. I probably am.
I don't understand. What is a rock? Why am I a rock player? I'm a burn player.
You play burn like it's the rock. So you're a rock player. You play all your decks like it's the rock.
It's like value oriented.
It's like part of this like
Can't race.
grand theory of like some people play more strategically and some people play more tactically, but I can't like nail down the details. But you just know it when you see it.
Well, I can definitely. You definitely know the difference between strategy and tactics in Magic. Like Mike punting earlier was just like missing the board, right? But he had his strategically he played wrong too.
Yeah, he failed at both tactically. That's what's the problem. The problem is like tactics and strategy.
Tactics and strategy.
Yeah, the problem is tactics and strategy
I am
are
a
like
rock
so
player.
interwoven. Yeah, that's actually the truth. You're a loser.
That's what I mean. That's what euphemism is.
Man, now I would have punched you if this was like 3 hours ago, but I ate that chicken and I'm not grumpy anymore.
But one thing that we discovered, right? Well, Mike and I were testing this deck versus L's, because Mike was kind of like Dr. Tyrell from Blade Runner, where he's like, "Show me a negative before I can show you a positive," right? That scene. So, I think he won like every single pre-sideboard game, right? And I was like,
Including like getting Wrath, getting Oath, getting Phoenix.
I was like, well, I am losing these games, but it didn't feel like as bad, right? It wasn't like I was just getting blown out. Like I was positioning him in a certain way. He would draw the survival, and then just go off. And I was like, well, right. I felt like the game was in my advantage. So, but the elves can do that, right?
Right.
But after sideboard, one thing I realized was that anger was actually like insanely powerful and instrumental to like elves chaining off.
Yep.
So I just like
Crypt anger.
Yeah, I did crypt anger.
Yep.
And it really just like crippled the deck.
Yeah. It doesn't do anything against Oath if creatures have summoning sickness.
Yeah. So they just sit there, and Mike was like, "Oh my god!" And then he wanted to play
Null Rod.
like a land destruction card for the mountain. Where he's like, "Should we play?"
Should we just thermal crest?
Yeah. He literally asked that.
That sounds like a rock player move.
Yeah. And I just kind of humored him for a minute, but then I said no.
Yeah.
Right.
Luckily.
Lan won almost all the sideboarded games. Notably, he did not win the one where he's just like, I think I'll do this. I'm like, no. You should attack like this, and he put me to 1. But all that happened was I returned my deranged Hermit to my hand with my symbiote and recast it. But he had used all of his resources.
Mike was like pretty adamant in making me like take this line that just like seemed really dubious to me.
And then
I just lost in like 2 turns, and I'm just like,
see, that's rock player behavior. This is all crystallizing pretty well in my head.
But it makes me want, because like Mike would give like good advice, and he's like, you should play like this, or like, oh, that makes sense, right? And then but sometimes, because he delivers his bad advice with the same panache and confidence.
It's the chaos element. Like he just he says everything the same way. Right. So you have to, as a friend of Michael J, you have to like be like, is this a it's genius or grifter? It's just but
it's not just as a friend.
Which one am I getting right now? Like,
but it's not like just like a friend, right? Like in like Banshees of Inisherin or whatever. Well, I'm not just like humoring Mike, because Mike will sometimes say like things I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's like pretty insightful, right? And I also, Mike earned like a lot of respect from me like at the beginning we're testing, because he I was like, oh, well, this is why like Mike has done like really well at Premodcast. He's actually like knows his material. He like is like pretty knowledgeable about this. This is pretty good. But then he goes, and because of that, right, and because like I was according him this respect, maybe like it forced him to like overstep his bounds, and he would just like deliver as if they were like things that he had known, things that he didn't know but just kind of thought.
Yeah.
Right. Like speculated on.
Yeah, he was like, oh shoot, this one was a hit. Like I got 10 more where that came from. And then he's just like digging the bottom of there. I was like, how about this? And then it's just like, how about we play this life deck, and then it's all Bases and Guy's Blessings. We'll save that one for another day.
So but for me, right, as just like a babe in the woods, I had no way to tell when Mike was delivering like real wisdom with just like speculation.
Well, I would just, when in the early days when Mike and I were testing Pre-Modern, I would just be like, Mike would like say a thing. He would just be like, this is insane. He was like, so Show and Tell got unbanned, and Mike came to meet up and he was like, so is Devour just like the best deck now? It's like you just always win on turn 2. You just go like Soul Land, Altar, Show and Tell, GG. And then I was just like, well, send me the list. And then like whatever, and I like worked on the list. It was like pretty good, but it wasn't, like 1 year later and Show and Tell doesn't really
gets
break the
rebanned or whatever.
Well,
Did Show and Tell get rebanned?
No.
We say it didn't.
Well, yeah, the reason Show and Tell can't be that good is because Recur's not that good.
I mean, because Oath isn't that good.
Right. I mean, like if something could be showed and telled,
because Rector isn't that good,
and because Bargain's banned,
because Gamekeeper isn't good.
Right. It's just like if for any creature, right, that Show and Tell could cheat out into play, it would have already been cheated out into play.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, via other means.
Right, because these things already exist.
Yeah, because the Devourer deck was an Oath deck before you could play straight blue-red with Show and Tell, and then I played straight blue-red for Show and Tell for a while, and then was just like, wait, you can just build this deck better without Show and Tell. And I think like Tanglewire was the card that was holding the deck back. Anyways, science left to be happening there. But yeah, I don't know. I have no more comments on green-white. Do we have any more comments on green-white? Should we give the deck a real name besides the secret deck?
I just call it Mulch. I just call it Mulch Oath.
Can we give it a name with a name that's exciting? That
I'm just like I'm not here for
Flores Mulch Oath.
Yeah, I'm not here for.
It's got a nice ring to it. Flores
Mulch Oath.
Lan D's Mulch Oath (parentheses) Flores' version.
Oh, maybe like Landy Hose Flores' Mulch.
Landy Hose Flores. It's like Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. It's Land's Mike's
Mulch Oath. Or like the quote from like The Office, like, "You missed 100% of the shots." Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott.
Okay.
I mean, like I just think it's like, a Mulch Oath deck is how I think about it.
Yeah.
There's like a green-white Mulch Oath.
I mean, time will tell, right? Like the cat's out of the bag. Kind of a unfortunate run for our heroes. These green-white decks have like struggled against combo because it's not 5 color. You can't just like parfait it up and have duress, hunting, whatever.
One thing that I thought, right, because when I was building it, and the mana, even though we're playing so many lands, the color requirements are actually like, and the color requirements aren't really heavy. You still are kind of like slightly light on colored.
Because you're playing a bunch of colorless lands.
Right, exactly, right. You're playing Dust Bowls, Wastelands, a Dust Bowl, Wastelands, Mistress Factories, right? But I remember thinking, I was like, man, if we could just play Meddling Mages, that would solve a lot of problems with this deck, right?
From the sideboard, because you train Meddling Mage deck. Yeah, you do the parfait trick.
Right.
Okay, so 4 Gemstone Mines, 4 City of Brass, 4 Mox Diamond,
I
4 Undiscovered Paradise, and you just play any card. Just name a card, you can play it.
Oh, I actually thought of a...
Hypnox.
You can play it.
I came up with a new deck, right? That I was kind of brewing.
Ooh, self-leak.
Should I just tell you guys?
Yeah. Leak it.
It's
Fight Colony wants to know.
I couldn't figure out how to make it, right? But I thought about like a Stifle Knot deck, right? But with opposition, because Gush is like Mike has famously said that Stifle Knot is by far the best Gush deck, right?
Yeah.
And I think
after Grotog, yeah.
He didn't say that, but it is implied.
Yeah.
It's strong number 2.
Yeah.
Really close behind Grotog.
And obviously, Gush is really good with spontaneous generation.
Yeah.
Right.
And spontaneous generation is really good with opposition.
So I wanted to brew all these together, right?
Yeah.
And it seems like, okay, it seems kind of sloppy, right?
Yeah.
But you know what other card is really good with Gush? Here's a hint. It's your
Scroll Rack.
No, it's your favorite card. Well, Scroll Rack also.
Deep analysis.
So Scroll Rack also, yes.
Career and Dryad.
No, it's your favorite card. Mike spent a lot.
Mox Diamond.
Right?
Yeah.
So you played Mox Diamond in this deck, right? And then another way to get green mana, right? That's like pretty good of like this entire complex is Undiscovered Paradise, right? So all of a sudden you're not really playing.
No, Undiscovered Paradise isn't good though.
It's pretty good.
It's not good in a deck that needs to get to 4.
It's
that's
good.
Gushing and
Well,
Moxing.
you have Mox Diamonds, so they make up for that, right? You only need to do it for that one turn.
I understand. So yeah.
But wait. But this means it's not a blue-green deck. It's actually 5 color Stifle Knot.
Yeah.
Right.
No, goddamn it. I was thinking this exact same thing. So I've been trying to build.
This is just like, I figured out Rorik's Wigwing to sell.
That's rude. Okay. 5 color Stifle Knot is a sweet idea. I'm sure that everyone's thought of it. Right now, I can't get over Stifle Knot being 12 cards. Not running Daze in this deck is actually somewhat of a liability. So I don't know. Like, I tried to cut the Dazes from Stifle Knot, and I was like immediately punished. Like, I think you just have to run 3 to 4 days in the Stifle Knot main deck, and that's just
I always, even in like sideboarded games, I never side out Days in the blue-red version.
Well, yeah, that's because blue-red. That's all blue-red version has is Days in Days-related plays. But so that's what I ran into.
A Lotus Pet.
I wanted to do that because I love that Grotog was a 5-color deck, and I was like, okay, well, whatever. These are LaCroix. Okay, LaCroix, lime
We're all
LaCroix.
adults.
Cold. We're drinking cold ones.
We're all sober.
Cold LaCroix.
Mike doesn't really drink.
with Mike.
That's true. Thanks, Mike Harris, for the round of drinks.
He bought me a drink. I put it in the refrigerator.
Oh yeah. Okay, well, whatever. Coming soon. We gotta wrap this up. The 5-color Dreadnought with opposition and spontaneous generation. Spontaneous generation, the best threat in pre-modern. So you spontaneous generation.
We need to dwell on this for a second because that's the kind of thing you just throw it out there and people don't know how hilarious the story is.
Okay,
right?
Take it away, Mike.
I think that this.
I thought the story is just BK just said that.
BK said to me, he said, "Well, just name a better threat than spontaneous generation." I'm like, I don't know, Dreadnought and Meddling Mage.
One thing that is one insight that I think BK had that was actually like really brilliant. And this will play into that, but just talking about the Mulch deck real quick. Was the addition of Core Haven.
Yeah.
Which I think is just like insane. It is insanely good against the Stifle Knot decks.
Yeah, because the main way that Knot breaks Core Haven is to play second Knot, in addition to stifling the trigger, obviously, or the activation. But if you play second Knot into Oath, that's super good for the Oath deck. So I can definitely see that. I wanted to say that the limiting factors on Stifle Knot is that the Stifle Knot package is 12 cards. The deck is good because it's a 17, 18, or 19 land deck. If you go up to a bunch of lands and you only run Portent or Impulse, or maybe you cut Impulse entirely, then you're just kind of like a... I start running into a bunch of... Like, whenever I try to play a Dreadnought deck, that's not... Like, when Sam Black joined the cast and Land Tax was just banned, he was like, maybe we can play a card advantage Dreadnought deck. So instead of playing Cantrips, we play card advantage. And then you just like look at it and it's like, what do we got? AK, Deep Analysis, Predict, Factor, Fiction. Like none of these work, basically. So like Dreadnought works because it gets a
it's lean.
Lands. Yeah, it's lean and it's a good Daze deck. And then if you cut Daze, then you're like then you're no longer lean. And then Spontaneous Generation and Opposition sound like great late game, but
Stifle Knot can never... A Dreadnought can't get past a single opposition in any creature.
Yeah, that's well, they can stifle, but
every activation.
All you need is a Sapperling. Yeah,
all you need is a second one. Yeah, but
I think we solved the late game by just playing Armageddon or Brain Freeze in your Dreadnought deck. Like Dreadnought's still broken. I think everyone. Well, Mike for sure thought he punted by not playing Dreadnought. We talked at length. Like, it's like I'm just playing Dreadnought, and they just didn't play Dreadnought.
No, but pause. Like I think that Landsec's excellent. I think that when I said that, in part was because I think I would have played the Dreadnought deck at a very high percentile. But I clearly did not play the green-white deck at a high percentile.
Yeah, I agree. And that was just you just like weren't familiar, you didn't have the reps. And I almost played Dreadnought. I almost played Burn. And the reason I
played Burn?
Yeah. The night before I was like, I think Burn might be good. Because again, black mid-range decks. I was like, if it's all black mid-range decks, what should I play? And that put me off Dreadnought, put me off Grotog. But I was like, but I could play Burn. And then I would just like, I still think you would beat Goblins. So I'd be like, beat Goblins, beat Elves, beat black mid-range. And then like, I would just have to worry about Dreadnought. It's crazy Kaplan was only a Dreadnought pilot.
But, I mean, this deck I built was to address Dreadnought and Landstill and then kind of the mid-range and aggro decks.
Yeah, the kicker was that you're an Oath of Druids deck, so like any time Oath of Druids is good, like your deck is good, and that's like. But I mean, that's what Parfait used to do. I just think it's just tough when you don't get to do everything that Parfait used to. So it's like, sorry, I'm stuck on comparing the deck to Parfait because it kind of feels like it needs to be like an Oath deck.
Yeah, but they're totally different.
They're very different.
Like
they're very different. I have to stop like.
Parfait is a toolkit deck, right? That uses that leverages weird cards across all 5 colors to address specific situations, as well as like the tax.
Parfait is a good 4 Enlightened Tutor deck, whereas this is.
Yeah, that's why I'm not playing 4.
Exactly.
I did have 4 at first, and I was like, well, this doesn't make sense. Like, there are cards that Parfait had 4 of, right, which were like Enlightened Tutors and Mox Diamonds, right?
Yeah.
When I did a quick iteration, 4 Mox Diamonds was, even with Mulches and like 27 lands, it's way too many, right? Although, didn't Adam play 4 Mox Diamonds in his deck?
Who's Adam?
He got second today.
But he's playing
Terrageddon.
Yeah, I mean, he probably played 4, and
I think it was like 27 land, no mulch. Right?
And it's not like the Terrageddon deck is more invested in
getting lands in the yard.
Yeah, it plays more Armageddon effects. It doesn't build the mousetrap, right? So it's just 3 Sylvans and then a bunch of Armageddons and Terror. So like Diamond to speed all that up is like pretty crucial. He also had Exalted Angel
in the sideboard.
No, main deck.
I think main deck. Yeah, it's very similar to Francisco's deck, but we'll see the actual list when it gets published and we get a picture. But
I didn't know he had Exalted Angels in the main deck.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, his deck is less interested in card advantage and more interested in just like winning, like creating the window and then winning it. That's how he beat me. He like created a window to resolve Cataclysm. I punted the Cataclysm turn, and then he killed me eventually.
Yeah.
But he navigated. I was just like, after the match, I was like, oh, you did, like, that was just like so sweet. You played Terravor. You read me for Plow. I plowed it. You played another Terravor, and then you cast a Cataclysm because you thought I was out of plows. And then he was just like, yeah, you should have just waited till Cataclysm resolved and then plowed the creature I had left. And then I was like, damn, like, I punted so hard.
Yeah, when you said that, it was kind of surprising to me because it's so like
obvious.
It seems just like ABC.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it's just like huge.
Yeah.
But the fact that I didn't even see it when it happened and I needed it pointed out to me is like worse. Like, I punt a lot. I realized what I did wrong pretty often after punting, but this one I was just like, man, hard fought. And he's like, yeah, you threw the game. I'm like, wow, not hard fought at all. Good work. Good luck in the top 4.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure. Like, I know sometimes when I'm playing, and I'm just like not concentrating, like just like for some reason I just kind of like go on autopilot. I don't know if this ever happened.
You lose focus. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like, and then like a couple of turns later, I'm like, where am I?
I get distracted. The reason why I made that punt. Okay, so here's the board. I have face down creature. Opponent has Terravor and face down creature. So we both have face down angels, and I was like, he's gonna cast Cataclysm, or in my head, Cataclysm and Armageddon are the same card. I'm like, he's gonna cast Armageddon, Cataclysm, right? Whatever. And if he does that, I need to plow before it resolves, so he gains less life. And then so I was just telling Vision, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna plow before it resolves, so because there's less lands in his graveyard, there's less life. It's like, it didn't occur to me that Cataclysm has text, you know? I was just like, this is what's gonna happen. Like, yeah, I've never seen an opponent cast Cataclysm with 2 creatures in play. I have 1 creature in play. Like, I had no idea how to turn that turn for a profit, and I would have won the game if I had seen it.
How did you end up losing the game?
I ended up losing the game by treetop village attacks while I flooded out. Like, I deep analysis twice. I sandbagged a land, and then my top deck was Ancient Tomb, and then I could intuition for 3 more lands to get my 4th land, and then I could deep analysis. So I was like flush in lands after that, but I had to block his angel, face down angel, with my face down angel because I didn't have time to develop my angel, and because of that, like, that angel shouldn't have been in play, right? It should have just been sacrificed to the Cataclysm, and then I would have just had the plow. So anyways, I lost that game because of the punt, and I don't want to spend. We'll probably have to talk about mistakes next week. But yeah, it's just crazy. Like, you just different stuff, autopilot stuff, like procedural errors. Like, one of the things was like, one time I did a thing that I was just like, I basically just misclicked in real life, which is, oh, never mind. What am I saying? One time I did a thing. The stupid Achroma sideboarding thing was like, I misclicked in real life. I looked at my sideboard, I clicked on sideboard cards to come, and I just like didn't click on Achroma to put in my deck. But I did that physically with my fingers and hands. And it was because I was so fixated on what the 4th sideboard card is, I added 2 4th sideboard cards because we were deciding between Spontaneous Generation and Devastating Dreams as being the 4th card, and I just put them both in, and then it was like, okay, I'm set. I took out 4 cards, I added 4 cards, didn't think about Achroma. And then, yeah, Michael J just made a mistake because he just envisioned a card in his opponent's hand that wasn't there, and so he just refused to pay for Mana Leak because he's like, I'm gonna pay for this Mana Leak, he'll just play another Mana Leak or something. And then
I was gonna mention that it was like 2 crucial errors that you and Mike both made today were because you guys got tunnel vision and because you were envisioning your opponent's Cataclysm as an Armageddon.
Yeah.
And then you envisioned that your opponent had a counter spell in their hand in addition to the Mana Leak. Again,
well, it actually makes sense if it was 2 Mana Leaks. We'll give it to him if it was a double Mana Leak.
I thought it was dead on board, but I was just wrong.
He keeps saying dead on board.
No, he did say, because I was like, why didn't you pay for the Wrath?
And he said, I thought it was dead on board.
And I was like, but that doesn't make sense. You're at 3, right? He'll attack for 2. Yeah, so.
Exactly.
I also had a Wasteland, so it was...
Yeah, and if you had a Plowshares, your Plowshares...
You had a Wasteland also?
Yeah. I had 4 mana open. One of them was a Wasteland.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it was bad. But we'll talk about... I mean, I always want to talk about mistakes because... we didn't talk about PSS today, but we'll talk about PSS at some point. I made a lot of mistakes in the PSS. I didn't get punched for them, but I had a moment today where Mike was very grumpy and tilted after his win because he was hangry. And I was telling Mike this, but I was also telling myself this. And I was like, look, all mistakes are equal. You just make some of them during your win innings. But like, sometimes you make mistakes in games you win. Sometimes you make many mistakes in tournaments you win, like me in the PSS, and like, you know, whatever. The whole goal in this long scheme of things is just to make fewer mistakes, not to like be like, oh, I missed a trigger in my win, or I like, you know, didn't like see a line or whatever, and you just like hate yourself for it. It's just like, well, you did it probably 10 times this tournament. Just like focus on all 10 of those things. Focus on the reason they happened. Some brain fart, some autopilot, whatever. Just like, don't do it again.
Yeah, I mean, I said this to you when you mentioned it the first time, and I just think it bears repeating, is that the expected cost of the mistakes matters more the later you get in the tournament, assuming you're doing well, right? If you're losing a win in, it's because you're playing against someone who also has a win in, right? So you're both in this position, and they're more likely to capitalize on these mistakes. Whereas like in the earlier rounds, you're more likely to go in autopilot because your opponents usually, on the whole, aren't as good, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah, I mean, it was funny because I had made a mistake. I just like I made several optimization mistakes in my first round, and I kind of felt like I wasn't warmed up, and I was like, that was kind of what was
Against
like,
Lane?
yeah. I had just like gotten to a point in the game, and I was just like, I was autopilot.
Yeah,
I was like playing the spells in my hand in the order that I drew them, kind of stuff. Just like, I can cast this out.
for a round.
Yeah, for one round.
For 1 hour, I was a rock player.
Well, the next article will be Who's the Rock.
Yeah.
We gotta wrap it up here. Thanks, Lan, for joining us.
Thank you.
We love talking to you. I love talking to you.
I like talking, so
It's perfect. Thanks, Mike, for letting us beat up on you, gang up on you. This 2v1 is pretty unfair.
I'm tired, so I
No.
can't
You've been
really fight
roasted.
back.
Yeah, you're just roasted relentlessly.
no. Mike was magnanimous the entire time, as he always is, right? Except for when he's just talking about Cole, how much he loves Cole.
Yeah. He's a
His
good
whole thing
sport.
is like, I'm like a member of the vast right-wing conspiracy, but he's edging me towards progress. That's the narrative.
Well,
It's a good bit.
Is it a narrative? Is it
Is it a narrative, or it's just
Or is it
what's
just
going
true?
on?
Yeah, I'd be like,
I won the PSS. That was cool. We'll have to talk about that.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Lan.
Grow a Talk.
Yeah, Grow a Talk.
yeah, I was shocked that Grow Time was what was played in the last round.
I'll have to. I'll just share more details on that at a future cast. But next week we probably have to like talk. Well, actually, we'll talk about that next week, and then the following week we'll talk about Madison. We'll probably talk about 1.5K. We got to talk about Loop Junction. Somehow, 2 hours in, we still have like 100 more topics. So there's plenty more pre-modern.
Can we have
banter.
Rebel on?
Yeah, we'll have Rebel on to
Rebel
talk about
on
Draco
the-
Explosion and the Rakdos buff.
I told Rebel she could be on our podcast if she beat me in a heads-up game for 4 Terminates.
Well, let's play that game. This has been Spy Colony, Love Spy Colony. Bye.
Bye, thank you.
Game over.